First, Patrul Rinpoche supplicates his root guru, Jigme Gyalwai Nyugu. You turn away from wrongdoing and embrace virtue, following the teachings on cause and effect. Your actions align with the progressive stages of the 9 vehicles. With your perfect view, you remain free from attachment in all circumstances. Peerless Guru, at your feet, I humbly bow. What kind of accomplished practitioner was his guru? You turn away from wrongdoing and embrace virtue, following the teachings on cause and effect. Jigme Gyalwai Nyugu was meticulous in choosing between good and evil by adhering to the principle of cause and effect. He refrained from any action, no matter how trivial, that contradicted this principle. He acted impeccably in accordance with the teachings of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and the eminent masters of India and Tibet. Your actions align with the progressive stages of the 9 vehicles. His actions began with the Shravakayana and ascended through the 9 successive vehicles. Unlike some individuals who know very little about the view, yet act recklessly without examining virtues and vices. With your perfect view, you remain free from attachment in all circumstances. Regarding his view, Jigme Gyalwai Nyugu realized that, at the ultimate level, all phenomena are devoid of conceptualization, and at the relative level, they are like dreams and illusions without inherent existence. Peerless Guru, at your feet I humbly bow. Before such an unparalleled, extraordinary, and peerless Guru, whose view, meditation, and action are always aligned, Patrul Rinpoche bowed at his feet with deep gratitude and veneration. As we must recognize, in this lifetime, we have encountered the great Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche and many other remarkable masters, whose view is as vast as the sky, yet who still meticulously choose what to do and what to avoid. From these Buddha-like masters, we have gained the right view on causes and effects, so we must remember the immense kindness of our lineage masters. Without receiving their teachings, we would have been like other ordinary individuals, and even worse, we might have committed wrongdoing so severe that endless darkness and suffering would await us in the future. Now, with the guidance of qualified masters, we understand the fundamental principle of cause and effect. How joyous! In light of their kindness, we should sincerely pay homage to the lineage masters with veneration. This chapter covers 3 subjects: negative actions that should be abandoned, positive actions that should be adopted, and the all-determining quality of actions. By studying this chapter, I hope you will understand that nothing is beyond the effects of positive and negative actions. The chapter on the freedoms and advantages explains the preciousness of the human form, which enables the pursuit of the Dharma. Without this right view, a person will not embark on the practice. The chapter on the impermanence of life teaches us that the jewel-like human life cannot endure long because it will be destroyed by impermanence, so we should practice Dharma with a sense of urgency. The chapter on the defects of samsara reveals that the 3 realms of samsara are like a house on fire. Therefore, our practice should be motivated by renunciation rather than the desire for temporary benefits as a human or God being. We must aspire to transcend samsara. The chapter on the principle of cause and effect explains that all beings are subject to the cycles of rebirth in samsara based on their positive and negative actions, and it is impossible for us to escape the constraints of cause and effect. Only by following the instructions of a qualified teacher and engaging in virtuous deeds will we find happiness in the future. Otherwise, there will always be darkness and suffering ahead. Therefore, we should be prudent in our choices about what to adopt and what to avoid. Make sure you understand the importance of the aforementioned chapters in the text. In particular, the chapter on the principle of cause and effect is crucial for practitioners. During this degenerate age, Many people claim to be Buddhists because they have taken refuge or received ordination. However, their actions and speech reveal that the Dharma has not taken root in their hearts and minds. Such individuals do not even acknowledge the basic principle of what goes around comes around, which states that virtuous actions bring happiness, while vice leads to suffering. Even if they claim to accept this principle, they merely talk the talk instead of walking the walk. In this world, all living beings long for happiness and strive to avoid suffering, which is inherent in all of us. Whether they are animals or humans, everyone desires happiness from the moment they are born and begin to experience sensations. Given that all beings seek happiness, it is crucial to identify the causes and conditions for attaining it. The arising of a cause and condition depends entirely on our own efforts, not on the help of a king, minister, or patron. Otherwise, no matter how diligent we are, it will be in vain. So what is the cause and condition for happiness? It is engaging in virtuous deeds. If you choose to engage in wicked deeds instead of virtuous ones, suffering will inevitably arise. The Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma says, "You commit wrongful deeds yourself. Therefore, you must face the consequences on your own." It is never the case that this person engages in wrong actions, but that person endures the consequences. We must firmly believe in the principle of cause and effect. In fact, believing in this principle is the only true indication of being a practitioner. If you do not believe in it, then no matter what persona you may assume, you are essentially a skeleton wearing a mask. This is because you lack something substantial within you. Negative actions to be abandoned. Our rebirth in the higher or lower realms of samsara is determined by the good and bad actions we have personally accumulated. Samsara arises from our actions and is entirely shaped by their effects. Nothing else dictates our rebirth in the higher or lower realms. Samsara is not created by an almighty god such as Indra, Isvara, or Vishnu, as asserted by non-Buddhist religions. Our rebirth is not merely a random occurrence, as claimed by materialistic Lokayata philosophers and atheists. The Mahayana Sutra of Mental Contemplation during earlier births states, "All phenomena arise from causes and conditions. Without causes and conditions, there are no phenomena." And believing in no cause and no effect is a significant wrong view. Believing in no vices and virtues leads to deluded thoughts. Therefore, everything arises from causes and conditions. Without them, there are neither external appearances nor internal emotions. It is a grave wrong view if you believe that everything is purely a matter of chance, and that there is no distinction between good and bad, cause and effect, or virtues and vices. The principle of cause and effect is unfailing. Once a seed is planted, when causes and conditions come together, the fruit will inevitably ripen. Similarly, regardless of whether you acknowledge this principle, if you engage in vicious deeds, you will undoubtedly face the karmic consequences of suffering one day. However, few people truly grasp this. In particular, some teachers offer no guidance to their disciples in this regard. Worse still, if these teachers themselves don't have the right view on the principle of cause and effect, how can their disciples develop a right view on cause and effect? It is like trying to pour from a large bottle that is itself empty into a small bottle. The small bottle will be empty as well. Thus, if the teacher is deceiving both themselves and others, they provide no genuine benefits to themselves or others. Today, many individuals teach or learn the Dharma merely as a facade, often neglecting the principle of cause and effect, which is evident in their words and actions. As practitioners, if we genuinely seek liberation, we should constantly reflect on the consequences of our positive and negative actions, striving to avoid wrongdoing and embrace what is right. Although the principle of cause and effect is highly significant, It may not be beneficial for individuals with incorrect views. No matter how often or earnestly I try to persuade them, this teaching may not offer them any benefit. In fact, it could potentially worsen their afflictions. Conversely, practitioners with deep virtuous roots can grasp this principle when it is brought to their attention. The 10 negative actions to be avoided. 3 of these 10 are physical actions: taking life, taking what is not given, and sexual misconduct. 4 are verbal actions: lying, sowing discord, harsh words, and worthless chatter. And 3 are mental actions: covetousness, wishing harm on others, and wrong views. I have covered the 10 negative actions in my recent teaching of the aspiration to be reborn in the pure realm of Sukhavati, and I will repeat them here. This topic is essential, so it is not enough to listen to the teaching just once. Only through repeated study of these profound instructions can a fortunate practitioner truly consider how to act for their own benefit. Leaving aside the goal of benefiting sentient beings for the moment, we should, at the very least, be mindful of cause and effect. Some people frequently engage in nonsensical talk, claiming, "Let it be if I end up in hell. It is my own affair, and it is none of your concern." Individuals who hold such wrong views are difficult to tame and show little interest in the principle of cause and effect. Even if they study the Dharma, they only grasp a few phrases or engage in empty rhetoric. When they commit wrongdoings, they feel no remorse, and when they witness others performing virtuous deeds, they hardly rejoice. In today's world, there is an abundance of such degenerate beings everywhere. Of the 10 negative actions, taking life is the gravest, so we'll first address this action. Taking life refers to any deliberate action that ends the life of another being, whether human, animal, or any other living creature. This negative action consists of 4 components. 1. Object. The being to be killed, whether human or animal, is correctly identified. 2. Intention. Once the object of killing is identified, the killer intends to kill the object, driven by afflictions such as anger. 3. Action. The killer engages in the act of killing through specific means. 4. Completion. The killer successfully takes the object's life. Only then can we say that the negative action of taking life is fully accomplished. From these 4 components, we can infer that if you intend to kill A but accidentally kill B, although the act is wrongful, it does not encompass all 4 components discussed above. As we all know, the negative impact of taking life is particularly severe. Why is this? It is because sentient beings cherish their own lives above all else and are willing to endure all sorts of pain to preserve their existence. The treatise on the Great Perfection of Wisdom states, "In the world, preserving one's life is the foremost priority." How is this so? Because all people are willing to endure punishment, bodily mutilation, and physical torment to protect their lives. As long as a person can continue living, they would willingly sacrifice a foot or a hand. Understanding this helps us grasp why the negative effect of taking life is so grave and horrifying. The sutra preached by the Buddha on distinguishing the effects of good and evil states that the act of taking life, whether human, animal, or any other living creature, leads to 5 negative consequences. 1. Being short-lived, life after life. 2. Frequently facing horrors. 3. Having more enemies. 4. Being reborn in hell and experiencing suffering. 5. Being reborn as a short-lived and sick human after emerging from hell. Therefore, the fact that many people currently experience fear, have numerous enemies, and encounter various obstacles is related to their actions of taking life in previous lives. In Tibet, you will often hear someone say, "Although I am not a good practitioner, I have never intentionally killed any living being. This is the most meaningful aspect of my human life." The same is true for certain Dharma friends. Once they have taken refuge or been ordained, it becomes impossible for them to kill a being. Even if they have not diligently practiced and have been idle at times, occasionally committing a few negative actions, the crucial point is that they will no longer engage in killing for the rest of their lives. It is precisely this cessation of killing that gives their human lives greater significance. It is extremely important for you to understand the gravity of taking a life. Many people do not view killing as a serious matter. They take it for granted when a human eats a tiger, yet they find it unacceptable if a tiger eats a human. Whenever an incident occurs in a zoo where a dangerous animal takes a human life, the mass media covers the news as if it were of global significance. In reality, we humans consume other living beings daily, so it should be considered normal if we are consumed by other beings as well. The life of each sentient being is equally valuable. The only difference is that we humans can communicate through speech, while other beings do not speak our language. There are various types of killing. For example, 1. A warrior killing an enemy in combat exemplifies killing driven by hatred. 2. Taking the life of a wild animal for its meat or fur represents killing driven by desire. Desire-driven killing is the predominant form of killing in contemporary society. Many individuals struggle to abstain from meat consumption, leading to animals being killed to satisfy their demand for food. As a result of such killings, the world is becoming increasingly frightening. Natural and man-made disasters occur frequently, with earthquakes today, tsunamis tomorrow, and fires the day after. Ultimately, these calamities stem from humanity's outrageous actions. Particularly considering the advancements in science and technology, people now employ machines to kill other beings, resulting in an unprecedented scale and frequency of killings compared to previous eras. The world can no longer tolerate such bloodshed. Therefore, it is inevitable that we are facing various disasters. If people do not cease these harmful actions, the future is likely to be even more challenging. This is not a prophecy or prediction. It is simply a cause and effect consequence. 3. Taking a life without understanding the consequences of right and wrong, or, like certain Tirthakas, believing it to be a virtuous act, is killing out of ignorance. The types of killing driven by hatred, desire, and ignorance are also described in the Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma. Regardless of the affliction that drives the act of killing, as long as a being is killed, the killer will inevitably face the consequences of their actions. The Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish states, "Killing others with joy leads to sorrowful wailing in hell." The countless sufferings endured for billions of years are too heartbreaking to express in words. Many people today hold deep-rooted wrong views, leading them to commit wrongful deeds without hesitation. This is especially true regarding killing, as they do not fear the repercussions of their negative actions in the next life. The Empowerment Sutra says, "Driven by evil views, one kills sentient beings. Then many demons will have the opportunity to bring harm. One will fall into the hell realm and cannot escape for billions of kalpas." However, many people remain indifferent to the concept of hell. When confronted with discussions about hell, they often respond, "Is that even possible?" Their reactions can be attributed to worldly education, parental and familial influences, and so forth. I have encountered many such individuals, including monastics. During our conversations, they claim they accept the principle of cause and effect. After all, they have taken ordination with shaved heads and monastic robes. Had they rejected this principle, others would have ridiculed them. However, I have noticed that they do not fear being reborn in the hells. If monastics can feel this way, it is even more true for lay practitioners. And if lay practitioners can feel this way, it is even more so for non-Buddhists. How many non-Buddhists do you think truly understand the principle of cause and effect? The answer is not hard to infer. Sometimes I feel that my teaching has little impact on you because many listeners have not even established the right view of cause and effect, let alone the view of the Great Middle Way and the Great Perfection, which transcend the 4 extremes and 8 conceptual elaborations. If you lack a fundamental understanding of cause and effect, you cannot even be compared to followers of the lesser vehicle. Some people claim to be Mahayanists and look down upon Theravada Buddhism. However, Theravada Buddhists view samsara as a burning house, possess renunciation, and uphold the principle of cause and effect. If we, self-proclaimed Mahayanists, engage in self-reflection, we may realize that we might not even have the basic view of cause and effect, let alone the profound tantric view, meditation, and action. If a person has not acquired knowledge at the elementary school level, yet aspires to jump directly to the university level and comprehend higher education, they are simply dreaming the impossible. Therefore, please do not assume that your practice is already pretty good, so that when the teaching is on the words of my perfect teacher, or the aspiration to be reborn in the pure realm of Sukhavati, you can just pick up a novel and start reading it in class. You may think, I am a university graduate. This teaching is below my level. It's always about the principle of cause and effect, which I already know. You may possess intellectual understanding, but without generating conviction, you cannot truly claim to understand it. Even if you have generated conviction, if you do not pay attention to your actions, your understanding holds no meaning. Please take some time to reflect on this. As Patrul Rinpoche states, there are 3 types of killing, known as acts with immediate retribution, as they result in immediate rebirth in the hell of ultimate torment without passing through the intermediate state. These are the killing of one's father, the killing of one's mother, and the killing of an arhat. According to the Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma, the gravest form of killing involves taking the life of one's parents or an arhat. The middling form involves killing a practitioner who has genuinely entered the path, and the lesser form involves killing a person or an animal. Thus, the gravest acts of killing lead to the most severe consequences. Some individuals believe that as long as they have not committed the act of directly taking a life with their own hands, they are innocent of killing. However, in reality, no one, regardless of social status or power, can claim to be free of guilt, as we have all unknowingly stepped on and crushed countless tiny insects while walking around. In the Vinaya Daily Essentials, a compilation of precepts to be observed daily in Chinese Buddhism, there is a practice guideline for not harming bugs and ants while walking. Before getting out of bed each morning, a practitioner first recites the Buddha's name a few times and then chants this verse. From dawn until dusk, all living beings take care of yourselves. If you lose your lives under my feet, may you be reborn in the Pure Land right away. Then the practitioner chants the mantra, Om Iti Rini Svaha, 3 times before placing their feet on the ground. By doing so, the practitioner avoids fault when accidentally harming insects. According to the Treasury of Abhidharma and Mipam Rinpoche's commentary on the Ornament of the Middle Way, some negative actions accumulate new karma, while others do not. When an individual unintentionally tramples on an insect, that negative action does not accumulate new karma. If you understand the consequences of killing and are unwilling to engage in it yourself, but instead ask someone else to do it for you, this action carries severe consequences. While teaching the words of my perfect teacher, the great Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche noted that during the Cultural Revolution, some Tibetan monks were coerced by others into taking the lives of animals. These monks understood that monastics are not supposed to kill, so they requested someone else to carry out the killing on their behalf, which was very wrong and demonstrated their misunderstanding of the principle of cause and effect. In fact, even though they did not directly take lives themselves, they indirectly caused the killing of living beings, ultimately leading to negative consequences. Emperor Wu of Liang's story is a typical example of this issue. According to the record of Water Mirror Turning Back Heaven, once the emperor asked Chan Master Baoji, "How long can I still live?" The Chan Master replied, "After I die, you will build a pagoda for me. When the stupa collapses, it will be the end of your life." After the Chan Master passed into parinirvana, the emperor built a wooden pagoda. Later, recalling the Chan Master's prediction and feeling that the wooden pagoda was not solid enough, he decided to replace it with a stone pagoda. The emperor had the wooden one disassembled to begin constructing the stone pagoda. At that time, Ho Jing overtook the throne and imprisoned the emperor in Taichung, where he eventually died from starvation. Emperor Wu of Liang, a devout follower of Buddhism, had been deeply involved in virtuous acts and made significant contributions to Buddhism. So why did he not have a peaceful death? Some even developed erroneous views about Buddhism because of this question. In reality, the emperor's life was the result of his actions in a previous life. He was a practitioner in a past life and spent much time in solitary meditation in a mountain cave. During that time, he had a mischievous and clever monkey. Whenever he dozed off during meditation, the monkey would make noise to wake him. As his spiritual progress advanced, whenever he entered a meditative state, the monkey mistakenly believed he was falling asleep and would try to disturb him. This annoyed him. On one occasion, before meditating, he placed the monkey inside a nearby mountain cave and sealed the entrance with rocks. Unexpectedly, he remained in the meditative state for several days. When he finally came out of meditation and went to check on the monkey, he found that the poor animal had starved to death. Due to his spiritual practices, he was reborn as an emperor in his next life and continued to engage in virtuous acts. However, because he had caused the monkey's death by starvation in the mountain cave, he also died from starvation in Taichung. This exemplifies the principle of cause and effect, which never fails. Nyingtik Ngöndro, 8th-9th centuries, the teacher of the Tibetan emperor, was known for his remarkable ability to enter a meditative state for 7 consecutive days. He possessed the extraordinary power of remote vision, allowing him to see distant places. For instance, he could observe the activities of Shantarakshita and Vimalamitra in India, which eventually led him to suggest inviting them to Tibet. Once, a practitioner did a retreat in Chimpu and mentioned that his eyesight was not good at the time. I joked with him, saying, when Nyingtik Ngöndro did his retreat in Chimpu, his vision was so clear that he could see all the way to India. How is it that you are unable to see well in Chimpu? We should also bear in mind that in this life, we may unintentionally take a life. Unless negative actions are purified, their consequences will eventually catch up with us. I heard a story about a practitioner who caught a mouse and relocated it, but unfortunately, the mouse was accidentally trampled to death by someone. Indirectly causing harm to living beings is truly dreadful, for until we fully repent for our negative actions, their consequences will continue to await us. During Patrul Rinpoche's time, some lamas and monks, when visiting their benefactors' homes, were served the meat of animals that had been slaughtered and prepared specifically for them. Their craving for meat was so strong that they consumed it eagerly, showing neither remorse nor compassion for the slain creatures. In such instances, the negative karmic consequences of the killing were shared equally by both the benefactors and their guests. It is true that the tradition of offering the flesh and blood of animals existed in Tibet in the past. It reflected the inappropriate actions of certain individual practitioners. We should address the matter as it is. There is no need to deny or hide. Tibetan Buddhism has since made positive changes in this respect. Except for very few monasteries and households, the tradition of slaughtering animals to make offerings to lamas and monks has generally disappeared. We cannot deny what happened in the past, but it is not a common phenomenon. I have mentioned in some of my books that eminent masters such as Jigme Gyalwai Nyugu, Patrul Rinpoche, and Pema Dundul, 1816 to 1872, strongly condemned the offering and consumption of meat and blood, as can be seen from their biographies. Of course, some benefactors may be unaware of the negative consequences of killing animals and offering their flesh and blood. However, it is not acceptable for recipients to knowingly withhold information about these faults to avoid upsetting the benefactors. A Dharma teacher must know what to do and what to avoid. It is highly irresponsible for a teacher not to inform a benefactor about the negative consequences of killing, merely to prevent them from becoming unhappy or frustrated. Instead, the teacher should not give in to the benefactor's wishes and should firmly say, "No, that is not acceptable." Here is a story from the Sutra of Parables. A Dharma practitioner had a benefactor whose family made a living by slaughtering pigs. The master had been receiving offerings from the family for many years. He knew that killing animals is a negative action, but he simply yielded to the family and never tried to dissuade them. Later, the father of the benefactor died and was reborn as a river ghost. Due to the karmic effect of killing in his previous life, the ghost suffered tremendously from his body being constantly cut. Once, the master was crossing a river by boat when the river ghost suddenly appeared and halted the boat. The ghost declared that he would not release the boat unless the master was thrown into the river. The boatman asked why. The ghost replied, "For years, my family and I has been offering to this master, but he never warned me about the karmic consequences of killing. Now that I must endure the consequences and suffer, I hold a grudge against the master." Upon hearing this, the boatman said to the ghost, "You are now experiencing immense suffering due to killing animals in your previous life. Just imagine how much worse the suffering will be if you kill a monk today." The ghost replied, "I understand, but I am too angry to let you go. I will only release you if you make offerings, recite scriptures on my behalf, and dedicate the merit to me by calling my name." Everyone on board agreed, so the ghost set the boat free. The master immediately began reciting scriptures and dedicating the merit, as did the boatman and other passengers. Eventually, the suffering of the river ghost was alleviated. Therefore, whether you are a monastic or a layperson, if you notice someone engaging in wrongful actions, you should bring it to their attention. Whether they choose to listen or not is their decision. Since you understand the impact of positive and negative actions, it is important to explain this to others who may not be aware. As stated in the text, when a benefactor offers the flesh and blood of animals and the master does not stop it and even accepts it joyfully, the negative karmic effect of killing the animals falls on both the benefactor and the master without distinction. The Lankavatara Sutra says, "Killing beings for the sake of profit, buying meat with money, both actions are negative, which lead to rebirth in the howling hell." There was indeed a bad habit of meat consumption in Tibet. I hope Han Dharma students studying in Tibet understand the faults of eating meat and gradually change this habit to avoid negative karmic effects. Nowadays, many people eat meat, but this consumption is not beneficial. It is clearly stated in the Lankavatara Sutra, "Meat isn't good, meat is impure, meat leads to evils, and destroys merits." That being said, it is still difficult for some people to change their habits immediately. Even if you cannot completely eliminate meat from your diet, you should at least try your best to reduce consumption, which can already bring you great benefits. Patrul Rinpoche also mentioned that when influential individuals and government officials travel, countless animals are slaughtered to provide for their tea parties and receptions wherever they go. Today, it is said that in some places, depending on the status of the guests, their reception meals are categorized into 3 levels. The high level consists of meat only. The middle level includes half meat and half vegetables, and the low level contains 1/3 meat. One can imagine the number of animals that need to be slaughtered for these meals, especially when provincial government officials are inspecting cities. Many animals are killed to prepare meals for these visits. I witnessed one such reception in a city in southern China. While I was eating a vegetarian meal in a restaurant, over a dozen tables around me were reserved for government officials, with only meat dishes placed on those tables. Upon seeing this, I thought to myself, oh my, just this meal alone is enough to bind them in samsara for many kalpas. Therefore, those who believe in the principle of cause and effect will not feel the slightest envy when they see such a meal arrangement. Instead, they will worry for the diners. Next, we'll discuss life in the Tibetan region. Wealthy individuals, as a general practice, take the lives of countless animals. Rather than allowing their livestock to die naturally, they slaughter nearly all of them as they grow older, sparing only a rare few. Especially in places like the Aba grassland and the Zorgai grassland, wealthy herders with large herds of livestock sing loudly every day, creating a seemingly beautiful scene. However, beneath this facade, numerous animals are being slaughtered, resulting in a bloody and brutal situation. When I visited to release animals, I often heard about families killing a significant number of livestock, which was horrifying to hear. Moreover, during the summer, these very cattle and sheep inadvertently cause the deaths of countless insects, flies, ants, and even small fish and frogs as they graze. These creatures are swallowed along with the grass, trampled underfoot, or buried in dung. The resulting negative karma from these actions affects not only the animals themselves, but also their owners. Although the owners of the cattle and sheep did not kill the small creatures directly, they did raise the livestock, thus indirectly committing negative actions. The negative karmic effect of livestock killing insects and more also impacts the owners. Therefore, it is truly unfortunate to be a herdsman. Many of you may not fully understand this example of a herdsman. However, if you consider a restaurant owner, especially one who runs a seafood restaurant, it is not difficult to imagine the corresponding negative karmic effects. According to Patrul Rinpoche, compared to horses, cattle, and other livestock, sheep cause particularly significant harm. While grazing, they consume various small creatures, including frogs, snakes, and baby birds. I have never herded sheep, so I was not aware of this myself. Patrul Rinpoche resided in Sershal, a town on the Tibetan plateau, where there were numerous sheep, so he was more knowledgeable about this. However, when we recently passed through Sershal, we did not see any sheep. We remarked, there used to be many sheep here during Patrul Rinpoche's time. Why do we not see any now? In summer, during shearing time, hundreds of thousands of insects carried by each sheep in its fleece all die. In winter, at lambing time, only half the lambs are kept, while the remainder are killed at birth, and their skins are used to make hats and clothing. Many wealthy individuals, including some lamas, choose to wear these products. This is indeed a questionable practice among Tibetans, and I hope it will gradually diminish. Fur and leather clothing used to be popular in the Han region. However, animal rights organizations like World Animal Protection have called for a ban on the use of fur and leather. and people around the world have protested against animal cruelty. As a result, the situation has improved in recent years. The killing of mother ewes and rams is also difficult to bear. The mother ewes are exploited for their milk and for breeding lambs until they become too old and weary, at which point they are all slaughtered for their meat and skins. No ram, whether castrated or not, is allowed to reach maturity without being promptly slaughtered. If the sheep are infested with lice, millions of them are killed on each sheep during shearing. Anyone who owns a flock of 100 or more sheep is bound to face at least one rebirth in hell. Now let's examine the killing related to a woman. For each Tibetan marriage, countless sheep are sacrificed during the dowry exchange, the bride's departure, and her arrival at her new home. In most cities in the Han region, with very few exceptions for Buddhist weddings where vegetarian meals are served, most weddings offer meat dishes. The grander the wedding, the more sentient beings are killed for food. In 2002, American film producer David Guest and Oscar-winning actor Liza Minnelli got married. The wedding cost $3.5 million. Michael Jackson and Elizabeth Taylor were among the guests. However, despite the extravagant celebration, the marriage ended just a year later. I am quite certain that this wedding did not only offer vegetarian meals, and that many animals were killed to cater to the guests. The scale of animal slaughter at this wedding must have been significantly larger than at a smaller event. Martin Lee Ka-shing, a billionaire from Hong Kong, spent $90 million on his wedding in 2006. Despite the grandeur of the event, the sheer scale of animal slaughter for the wedding feast is alarming. Today, people's greed knows no bounds. In the past, individuals would occasionally slaughter a few sheep or a yak, but now, some people host extravagant weddings and invite thousands of guests. These guests often hold high social status, prompting the hosts to feel compelled to offer more than just vegetables. Although these individuals seem to bask in glamour, they are unaware of the negative karmic consequences of killing. Here is a story from the merits of the Diamond Sutra. A woman passed away shortly after her wedding. Her spirit entered her parents' dream and said, "I did not engage in any wrongful activities during my life, except for the fact that numerous goats and sheep were slaughtered for my wedding feast. As a result, I am now enduring immense agony. If you recite the Diamond Sutra on my behalf, I will be liberated from this suffering." Her parents followed her instructions and began reading the sutra. 7 days later, they encountered the Buddha in a dream, and the Buddha said to them, "Due to the merits of reciting the Diamond Sutra, your daughter has transcended the lower realm and has been reborn as a human once again. Have you ever taken the lives of sentient beings while you were still a lay person or after you got married? Have you sincerely regretted your actions? If you have not yet purified these negative actions, even if you did not directly commit the act of killing, you will still face the negative karmic consequences in a future life. Therefore, we must exercise great caution regarding the outcomes of our actions."